All right. Hi, everybody. Welcoming you back to the main stage. Felt like those breakouts we had were incredible. So thank you so much to all the participants in our breakout panels. Excuse me. It's time for our final panel of the day, believe it or not, which is about maintaining veteran groups remotely. Obviously, a situation that everyone has been thrust into over the past year for obvious reasons. So please let me introduce Chris Valdez, who is leading this panel, and will introduce all of our panelists. Chris, please take it away.
Thanks, George. Pleasure to be a part of my second time on the Employing U.S. Vets Conference. And I just do want to start it off that employee resource groups are really important. And before we get into it, I want to take it over to our other panel discussion participants. So first, I want to introduce Don Livingston. If you can give us a quick intro.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Don Livingston, and I'm honored to be with you. My first opportunity to participate, and I actually, a little bit about myself. I'm with a company by the name of Sonoco Products, headquartered out of Hartsville, South Carolina. I've been with Sonoco for 33 years in various capacity. I'm currently in our finance organization as a manufacturing and sales systems manager based in Hartsville, live in Florence, South Carolina. Have been in plant management roles in Tuscaloosa, Alabama and Miami, Florida, and also in sales leadership roles at our Atlanta location. Again, I'm honored to be here. I'm actually married to Robin. I've been married for 34 years and have 3 sons, and very active in my church. I'm a Sunday school teacher for 6th grade kids. I've done that for 15 years, and a deacon, and also teach or I coach youth baseball in my spare time, and I'm giving a go at playing golf as well. So that's the spiel on me.
Thanks, Don. Now turning over to Tiffany for your intro, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I will keep it brief because I know that we've got a lot to cover in a short period of time, but I am Tiffany Daugherty, and I am with Barclays. I get to be one of those unique people that has a full-time job leading military and veterans outreach for the U.S. Barclays is a global bank. We've got about 85,000 employees around the world, between 20 and 25,000 of those here in the U.S. that we're headquartered in the U.K. The fun fact about Barclays is we're 330 years old, so we are older than this country significantly. And I have a vantage point of working with ERGs across the world and also here in the U.S. I am on the steering committee for our ERG, our military, what we call the Barclays Military Network, but also led nationally the veteran ERG, which had about 1,000 members at First Data, which is now Fiserv prior to this. Personally, I'm an Army vet, I am a Navy brat, proudly, and I am a former special ops spouse, so I've lived a few sides of this military life, and I'm really excited about this discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Tiffany. Moving over to Gary Patton. Please provide the intro, sir.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Like Tiffany, I am also an Army veteran and a Navy brat, so we're well paired there. Spent 35 years in the Army. 5 years with a company called CACI International Incorporated. CACI is a national security company. We're headquartered in Arlington, Virginia, but we're all over the world, providing expertise and technology to Department of Defense customers, intelligence, members of the intelligence community, agencies there, and other federal agencies. So we're a federal contractor in the national security space. At CACI, I run the Veterans and Military Affairs program. In that role, I support our talent acquisition efforts, veterans hiring, military spouse hiring, and so forth. A lot of employee relations work. We have nearly 8,000 employees who are military or veterans. A lot of work there. And also our philanthropy efforts. About 80% of our efforts and resources in the company go towards military and veteran service organizations. So a lot of work on the philanthropy front. And last but not least, my side gig at CACI is chairman of the Veterans Employee Resource Group. It's much more than a side gig, by the way. It's but it's I think it's an important part of the work we do. I'm proud to say our Veterans Employee Resource Group. We just celebrated our 4th year anniversary. We started with 30 members 4 years ago, and now we're nearly 500 members in 4 chapters spanning 4 different time zones. And I'm looking forward to talking to everybody here in the group and in the audience there about our journey on the Veterans Employee Resource Group pathway. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary. And moving on to Chuck Bunch.
Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Chuck Bunch. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on the panel today. Thanks for joining today and attending this great event. I've seen a lot of the great interaction, but I work for USAA. I'm in military affairs, and a couple of my responsibilities. One is advocating for military spouses and our military veterans in meaningful career space. And then I also have the fortune of managing our employment resource group, VetNet, which spans across our enterprise and at other regional offices. Looking forward to joining the panel today and sharing a great discussion and joining in with all these great military advocates. So that's me, and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. And that leaves me, I'll keep it very brief as well. So Chris Valdez, I work in our veterans and military hiring department for Cognosante. And Cognosante is an emerging IT, DoD cyberspace company that's branching out there to a lot of the efforts going on with healthcare and as well as Medicare, Medicaid, and some efforts with the Veterans Affairs community. So we do a lot there, and I could talk to you all day about what we do, but I can just give you our website and you can do all the reading. I'm also serving in Virginia Army National Guard, been in for over 13 years, and I currently command an infantry company. Love what I do, both military and civilian side, and I'm glad to be here to talk about employee resource groups, one which I've started in June of 2020, so we're closely reaching our 1-year anniversary and looking to share a lot of the ideas with everyone here in the group. So with that said, we'll transition over to our panel discussions. We have quite a few questions to go over, and I know there's a lot of great details, so we're also open to questions here. So we'll take that for about 10 minutes at the end of our panel discussion. So we do have an order here, so we'll go over the questions, and we'll turn it over to our panel discussion participants to respond to them. First question is, how important are ERGs to your organization's veteran program, and in what ways do they make veteran employees more connected to the company and to coworkers? So I've got a few of our panel discussion participants to initiate that. So I guess the first response will go with Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. You know, I really can't imagine a veterans program without a VERG and a VERG without the veterans program. But I know that one has to come before the other. And what I learned here just from talking to our panel members, you know, some companies form a VERG first from its employees, and then that spawns a veterans program. In my company, we've had a long-standing, decades-long veterans program, very mature veterans program, but we had not, until recently, 4 years ago, we had not had a VERG. So, but now that we have both, you know, they're just, you know, there's really no way to separate the two. Their activities and efforts are so interwoven. You know, I lead the Veterans and Military Affairs program. I also chair the VERG. So, you know, I think I'm at the point of intersection there to make sure that the two efforts are synchronized and informed and made aware of, you know, situationally aware and so forth. The thing I'd like to say about our Veterans Employee Resource Group as it relates to, you know, the connectivity in the company is that, you know, I think it's important that your VERG has a mission. Our mission is to keep our members informed and engaged and contributing to the company in several areas: business development, talent acquisition, retention, mentoring, and philanthropy. And so, you know, you can see right there, just based on our VERG mission, that you know, we're going to stay connected to the company. We're not a social group. We're a purposeful organization, and again, keeping our members engaged on those several lines of effort there. I'll just give you one example. One of our areas is to make contributions to the company in the areas of retention and mentoring. Well, we formed we organized an effort called a Veterans Integration Program, VIP. Every veteran is a VIP. In the Veterans Integration Program, the Verge members invite, message, and introduce themselves to the new members in monthly memos, monthly emails out to our newly hired employees. Every veteran, every military transitioning service member or military spouse as a new hire in the company gets several emails from our Veterans Employee Resource Group, welcoming them to the company, introducing them to the VERG, inviting them to the next VERG meeting, and most importantly, inviting them and encouraging them to be part of the Veteran Transition Mentor Program, where we have Verge leaders, seasoned leaders in the company, mentoring new employees who have just recently separated from the service, all part of the Veteran Integration Program. And like I said at the beginning, I couldn't imagine doing that program, a company-wide program for all new employees that are veterans and military. I couldn't imagine doing that without the VERG. But I think it's just key to have the VERG is integrated in as many company activities as possible, and that's just one way we do that in CACI. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. That's a load of information there, and I expect as much from a very mature ERG from CACI. Thank you, sir. Turning it over to Tiffany. I know we got the first question out here, but any comments you want to provide there?
Absolutely, and as was stated, Gary shared a lot of information, so I'll just hone in on a couple of things that you mentioned. As you asked, how do ERGs impact, make veteran employees more connected? And as this topic was introduced, we specifically talked about COVID, which I know will come up more in this environment, but I think that's impacted most of us in a greater geographic disbursement of our colleagues that work for us. So I want to hit on that and say that ERGs have always impacted retention. And in fact, I have experience of mobilizing. That's the number one thing that I think an ERG can do, is that they can impact retention. And we're seeing that especially during this time, and numbers show up. We're seeing it especially during this time, where especially new joiners coming into an organization. I like Gary's point that onboarding and integration piece is a really critical time to engage and bring people into the culture. And this year, it's been a really unique challenge of many people, especially those coming in through graduate programs. They are not experiencing our culture in the same way that they would if they were coming into an office day to day. And so we really rely on these members of that ERG to be their cultural ambassadors, to bring them into the fold, to engage with them. And we've never seen it be more important than right now. And to be a voice for them, because even those of us who have formal military programs, I can't hear everything and sit next to every colleague. So we have to have those force multipliers who are listening. And one of the messages that's really been resonating with my senior leaders as we talk about veterans as a whole lately is that veterans are leaders that know how to take care of their people. And that side of taking care of your people has never been more important than it is today, right now, over the last year within our companies. In fact, Simon Sinek, adore his work, has been talking about how we need to stop saying soft skills. We need to start saying human skills. And I think veterans bring those amazing human skills, the members of our ERGs, and whether they are veterans or non-veterans, by the way, but they've decided to invest their time because they care about this community. We couldn't do it without them. They can be the people who are really walking alongside people and impacting retention as they come through.
Thanks, Tiffany. I think here we might be getting to our question and answer portion here a lot sooner than expected. So we've covered a lot of great detail with just those two responses, and we want to keep it open here also. So I'm going to move on to the next critical question. I don't think we addressed as much yet, and it's how has your organization kept its ERGs active in an environment where employees are rarely gathering in the same physical space? And I know that's more of the COVID-19 effect on the pandemic and everything, and Tiffany touched on that, but I want to turn it over to Don Livingston here to address some of it. Challenges he's addressed with his organization.
Yeah, I'll be glad to. And one thing I would like to add, during my introduction, I did not say our company has had a military professionals business resource group for only about 5 years now, so we're still in the infant stages of our BRG. And I've actually been co-leading that group since it started. But I did want to tell you that I'm actually not a veteran, and Tiffany's statement just a second ago that veterans are leaders resounds with me. The reason I volunteered to do this is because I am a hiring manager, and I have been so for 30 years, and absolutely place a huge value on what veterans bring to our workforce. So I did want to share that just to kind of give you a different feel for, you don't have to be a veteran to lead or participate, obviously, in these resource groups. But I salute all of you who are veterans, by the way. As far as the question, how do we keep our BRGs active during times when we're not able to physically gather? I honestly can say it hasn't really been much of a change for us. We are headquartered in a small town in South Carolina, and our BRG, our military professionals group, we have 26 core members on our team. Of that group, 16 are veterans and 10 are not, and 17 of them are actually remote to where we are headquartered. So, I mean, when I say remote, I mean, all over the United States. So we meet virtually anyway, and we always have. The biggest change that we've experienced is related to the recognition events that are so big for us. We have an annual picnic between Memorial Day and the 4th of July on site at our headquarters with over 500 in attendance, where we recognize our veterans with different, we recognize them, of course, verbally and in front of everybody. We also give certain gifts to each veteran in attendance, but it's open to our entire campus. And then at our branch plants, we have local events to correspond with that, where they have lunches, and we would live stream a speaker, a keynote speaker, in conjunction with the event across the country. So of course we've still been able to have those types of events. They've just been completely virtual, and there's been no on-site activities related to the big cookout and that sort of thing. We are part of our Diversity and Inclusion Council, and we continue to meet quarterly with our D&I Council, which has always been a practice. That has always been a physical meeting, and of course we are doing those virtually, but it's still the same agenda. Everything has been exactly the same in that regard. And from our BRG, from our military professionals team perspective, we do meet monthly, and we do that via Microsoft Teams. And I would say, I think we've actually grown in participation as a result of the pandemic, because more folks feel comfortable with the virtual environment and have actually adapted to it and embraced it and become a more contributing part of our team. So that's really been our experience.
Yeah, thanks, Don. I think a lot of what you said also resonated with me with things like when military holidays were coming up, and I think point is May is National Military Appreciation Month. And for those of you that don't know, we have National Military Spouse Appreciation Day, May 7th, and we have Memorial Day, May 31st. And there's a ton of different celebration days in between that a lot of us don't really know about. So you'll notice that your marketing team reaches out to every veteran that's been self-identified or has been known in the company to work on things like that. And that's another reason why to have an employee resource group that is composed of veterans and military spouses, so we could provide that response, so we can establish that footprint within the organization. And other things like Red Friday, remember everyone deployed, have everybody there to support. Those are reservist National Guardsmen who are deployed, CONUS and OCONUS, to support them and their active duty service members around the world who are fighting the war on terrorism. So that's a very important aspect to show support there. And it's not all about just the badges and recognition. it's really getting out there and showing that support. So I thank you, Don, for sharing that. So the next question I want to touch on is a little bit on metrics. So the question is, understanding statistics for veterans, military spouse hiring. How are you gathering data on your veterans and military spouses, and how are they self-identifying? A challenge that a lot of us are encountering even today. But Chuck Bunch from USAA, I'm going to turn it over to you and see how you can answer that for us.
Well, Chris, thanks for the question. I would say, we're very fortunate that VetNet has been in existence at USAA since 2008. And so we've, learned some things along the way. But one of the things that we've been able to do is create a VetNet roll call. So we encourage, as you come through new employee orientation, we encourage you. I mean, this is all self-identified, as you imagine. We want everybody to self-identify, but sometimes that's just not always the case. But they can enroll in VetNet roll call. They can actually designate what service their military spouse, or if they're National Guard, or if they're active duty. I mean, not active duty, but reservists. What veterans they are a service of. So roll call has been a tremendous tool for us, where we can get a snapshot of how many we have within the organization. Now, I'm not going to say that's 100% accurate, because there's some things that change out through HR that I'm not aware of working in military affairs, and we've tried to sync those tools, but that's the closest snapshot we've used. But it connects with your member identification, like you have a background info when you click on an individual's employee number, and you can kind of see that background. You can see if they're part of VetNet. So that's been a very useful tool, and we try to communicate that often through our VetNet community, through our Slack channels, during new employee orientation, and it seems to be pretty good. But we do those reminders oftentimes to have people update their status, because things change, or maybe an employee no longer works there, retires. So we try to update that as often. But I'm not going to say it's 100% accurate, but it's pretty close to the target.
Right. Yeah, I know there's different ways, the TTPs out there and tactics to do this, and I also wanted to add there are hiring requirements as well from the HR recruiting perspective on like the OFCCP standards for Office of Compliance and Hiring, and also the Vietnam era Veterans Readjustment Assistance Act for kind of compliance thing that we have to follow within HR. So
Chris,
I think
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the VEV reform, which you just mentioned, and I just want to throw this out there, because I know that we have organizations of differing places in maturity with their veterans programs, and also depending on, we're a European company, we have our own unique challenges around the legal implications of privacy. And that said, then you've got Amazon on the other extreme that just went live in 53 countries. So if you think you have legal challenges, it can happen, it can be overcome. But the VEV reform that was just mentioned, pretty much every employer asked that. And I'll just throw it out there that if you're getting pushback, that is not sufficient. It's a very confusing form. It's only meant to identify a certain population of veterans, and most people fill it out incorrectly. I would say I filled it out incorrectly for myself because it's confusing. So the more simple you can ask those questions, the better. And really to the nuts and bolts of this, what Chuck was saying, 2 points. One, on the job application, asking that status as simply as you can, but you have to decide in your company what's important for you. But I recommend questions like, have you ever served in the military? As simple as that. And second, are you a spouse or partner? Spouses are not a protected status. Veterans are. Your legal team are the people who should sort that out. But there's lots and lots of companies to benchmark across. It's a very mitigated legal risk, and you can talk to other companies about how they've gone through that, because many, many have. But yeah, again, the VEV piece is not applicable to everyone, and OFCCP, is not enough to collect very good data. And OFCCP doesn't apply to all of your organizations, but to those of you who are government contractors. So that's a great case to make in that case, but you can't just come out and say it's a legal requirement, because if your organization doesn't contract with the government, that's not exactly true. So you have to find another business case on that.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for touching on that, Tiffany. And I think that's very important to understand because I know there can be confusion across those two topics. And I like where you brought up for the military spouses, and if it hasn't been stated yet, there's great organizations out there like MSEP for the Military Spouse Employment Partnership. We partnered with them last year and then have a job board that we're posting our positions through and increasing our military hires that way and combining it with our ERG efforts. There's also family readiness groups, and Tiffany, you said you were a spouse before, so FRGs or family readiness groups are great as well. I mean, they're really the core and backbone of each service member's family. So those are actually great networks to reach out to as well. And there's a variety of them out there. You know, not just the ones you see on Military One Source, but there are more closer range connections you can get out there with just the units that you live next to in the military bases and installations. So I think we're here at the last question, and I know we got a very strict time schedule, and we have about 4 minutes left for the panel discussion until we get to the QAs. So the most important question here is, you know, with everyone on the call with various maturity times of their ERGs, what are the lessons learned that you can share with our community here that you would like everyone else to know? And I'll open it up to the group for anyone that wants to speak first.
Chris, if I may take that.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Hey, thank you, Gary. What I would mention is, you know, being kind of a mature ERG, we were really locked into the face-to-face, like many organizations, and celebrating a lot of our events and celebrations, you know, doing it in person and having that feel, you know, having that aura in the room. And then when we had to pivot to the virtual environment, not that we were hesitant to do it, it was just different. And we didn't know if it was going to have the same, you know, way to honor, you know, that type of, you know, acknowledgement. And so when we pivoted to the virtual environment, we discovered a lot of great best practices. What I liked is we involved many of our other regional sites, which they didn't feel included before because they did their own separate type of celebrations, but tuned into the home office where I'm assigned. But we were able to include and get, you know, better participation, and people felt aligned to that celebration. So I would say that virtual opportunity, it has a great reach, and we're looking forward to the face-to-face, but I think having a blend both, I'm sure is going to continue. So I just wanted to share that piece. We were a little hesitant, but we discovered a lot of great things from the virtual delivery.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's also an important point there, Chuck. Turn it over to Gary for any lessons learned from CACI.
Yeah, thanks. You know, I just echo on a couple points that I've seen in the chat box. I mean, they stole my points, but number one, listen to your members. It is a group. You want to get buy-in from the membership. You know, do the things that's important to them. And we have a mission. We got to stay aligned on the mission. But in terms of seeking member initiatives and suggestions and so forth, we try and be really active on that front and make it a group effort. Secondly, I saw this in the chat box as well. Partner with the community service organization, your community relations department, or we have a group called CACI Cares. And the VERG is literally the action arm now of CACI Cares. It didn't start out that way, but because our ERG members are so keen on volunteerism in the military and veterans community, you know, there's this relationship, very strong relationship now between our community relations department and the VERG. We are the action arm for volunteerism and seen that way in the company. I think that's important. Number three, real quick, growth management is an area of a lesson learned. We didn't think we were going to grow as rapidly and as big as we did, so we've broken up into local chapters. A chapter focused in Colorado Springs and Denver, a chapter focused in the California coast, and so forth. Regional chapters sponsored by elements of the company, but we found that this was effective because they're able to build greater cohesion in a smaller group, and also at the same time, that chapter is expanding outreach into that local military and veterans community, more so than we could in a big national organization. So we learned that lesson and applied it. And the last thing I'd like to say, last lesson I'd like to talk about is the leadership oversight. What's leadership of the VERG going to look like? We've been through about 3 or 4 different iterations of this, evolutions of this. What we've come up with is a steering committee, and then I handpick the people on the steering committee, and they're all picked for a certain reason: involvement, participation, energy level, but also the role that they play in the company. It's no coincidence that the CACI vice president of marketing for the company is in the VERG steering committee. There's no coincidence that the proposal vice president in the company is in the VERG steering committee. They're veterans, but they're also influential people in the company, and by kind of spreading the leadership and oversight to many members of the leadership in the company, we've essentially bought buy-in and greater awareness and support from across the company, especially in key elements, key functions like marketing, proposal management, business development, and so forth. So those are just some of the lessons learned. We probably all list a million of them, but those are the ones that I think have had the biggest impact in my company, CACI VERG evolution. Thank you.
Gary, that's very valuable information from a mature ERG. Thank you. I think just to summarize that also is you want to make sure you bring in the right people, and that means the ones who are influential and in a position of decision making. And in the military, it's all about who's a decision maker, who's a mover and a shaker. But I think the best ones that have the direct influence on the CEO to make things happen. So different lines of effort, different communication lines, and if you think strategically about it and make the right tactical action, you're in the right place. So I think that completes our panel discussion for now, and we're going to save some time here for the Q&A and closing comments from the group. So am I turning it over to you, George, for any Q&A questions out there?
Sure. First, can all of you hear me?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. So I'm looking at the chat right now and not seeing a whole bunch of questions that have come in recent minutes. So please, if you all have questions, please toss them in the chat. Let me get things started, though. And, let me just kind of ask kind of a question getting at what has surprised you. Obviously, the past year with everything COVID has brought on, there have been a lot of changes, a lot of things that we all had to get used to, particularly in the veteran employment space, obviously. Talk to me about what surprised you and how you all have adapted to handle it.
Yeah, I'll tap this first, but I'm actually going to steer away from COVID a little bit here and say, when you first said that, I started thinking what surprised me in leading ERGs to begin with, and I keep resonating on the comment in the chat around listen to your people. I would also say and ask them lots of questions. Run focus groups of the Guard and Reservists, and those who know Guard and Reservists, run focus groups on specific topics. Tap them and ask them, because remember, people don't tend to complain. What I have found is surprising is often my perception of what the challenge is not the same as what's really going on. So a quick example of how I learned from an ERG about this was I worked for an organization that had a industry-leading Guard and Reserve military leave policy. We'd won all the awards. We felt really great about it. And I decided to just run a couple of focus groups. We actually ran a survey and got back some interesting data. The data at first said, yeah, it's a great policy. I felt really supported, but my reintegration back to work didn't go well. And I was surprised by that. And so then I pulled together focus groups of one focus group of Guard and Reservists who'd been activated in the last couple of years, one focus group of managers who'd had Guard and Reservists. And I found the gap was 100% of the managers that I spoke to said they think the reservist wants to be left alone while they're gone, and they shouldn't talk to them, and they should leave them alone and let them focus on what they're doing outside of the office. 100% of the Guard and Reservists said I wish my manager would have communicated with me while I was gone and we would have stayed in touch. And that's just one example of, I'm often surprised, but I don't find those things out without asking. So not just listen, but listen and ask.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to jump on that?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing that surprised me a little bit on the COVID side is how fast we transitioned to a work from home organization, which we were kind of hybrid. We have a very flexible management team that's behaved, this actually happened. My wife gave birth to our son and we have a 17-month-old at home. My manager let me work from home the whole week, which surprised me because I'm so used to the military. Hey, you got to come in and, make sure you share time with the mission and all that. I'm not saying that the military is not granting me that. I was surprised to hear that from another company that was not so tied into the DoD, even though we are a federal contractor. And also, not COVID, how much of the work ethic didn't change? Like, we were actually able to get more stuff done at home with all the distractions that are going on, with kids running around in the background, dogs screaming and running around the house. Everyone was able to get our work. We were able to get our work done in an efficient manner, if not more efficient manner. So that surprised me, and I still don't know the answer to the work ethic thing unless there's something on the news that I'm not aware of. But those are the biggest two things that surprised me.
And George, I have something real quick related to what has surprised me the most, and it's non-pandemic related. It is, as a leader of the business resource group, statistics is a very big issue for us in understanding, how many veterans we have. We really have poor statistics on military veterans. Military wives or military spouses. And what I found to be a big surprise is the number of veterans who choose to not self-identify as veterans we use Workday and in their profile. We have about 60% that have identified, and through other programs, we've identified a lot of veterans who, when we cross-check them against our Workday data, they're veterans, but they've chosen not to identify. That surprises me. And I know we certainly don't have time to speak to that here, but I would be curious if any of you have reasons why folks would not identify as being a veteran. As a non-veteran, it really surprises me.
Don, if I could follow on, I know we're running short on time, but that's similar to what I mentioned with us. Once an employee is hired and they go through new employee orientation, there's opportunities to identify as you're applying, but that is a surprise that maybe it was a previous experience, maybe didn't feel the value, being valued as a veteran, and think there might be a similar experience. And so when they come aboard USAA, we just reinforce that, hey, we do value service. We are going to deliver on our brand signature, which is we know what it means to serve. And then so it increases, and then people start self-identifying a little bit more. But still, there's that, we're perplexed with that too. And we do work, we use similar HR resources, but we just can't figure it out either. So I don't know, I can't speak for other veterans, but we try to encourage them, reinforce it through VetNet, letting them know they have that support group, and then showing the value during the new employee orientation, encourage them to enroll on VetNet roll call.
Okay, excellent. So we have another question, this from Jessica Gombar. What is your best advice for a newly established veteran ERG in an organization?
All right.
Yeah, wait, George,
Go ahead, Gary.
No, thank you. I'll just, I wrote this in the chat box, but maybe some folks didn't get a chance to look at it. But, I think number one, start with a core of charter members that, as small as it needs to be, but You want high energy people. You want people of influence. You want a diverse group in terms of service, business sector. We started with we want to make sure we had Guard and Reservists represented in that core group, military spouses represented in that core group, officers, non-commissioned officers, different services, and so forth. And then that sort of expanded through various membership drives and so forth. But having that core group essentially handpicked, more or less, by me reaching out to them and saying, hey, how would you like to be a part of this? Number two, you got to get immediate support and buy-in from the senior leadership in the company. How do you do that? Well, we had a charter. We asked the chief HR officer to sign it. We invited the president of the company to our first meeting, who's also an Army veteran. We had the chairman of the board as a new member. We made a big deal about that. And so, immediately showed that we had senior level, top cover leadership buy-in and so forth. And then, other people want to start being associated with it. Again, I already mentioned we're a key part of the volunteer organization within the company, and you're involved in integration activities. You're involved in talent acquisition efforts, and pretty soon everybody wants to be a member. But it really starts out with that initial core group and establishing and gaining support and top cover and endorsement from your senior leadership at the outset, and just building on that. Thank you.
I would also say for any ERG, if you're looking to focus and to get greater engagement, especially if you're new, focus on intersectionality. Partner with your other employee resource groups. You have a lot of message to share. We have a lot of history to share. The military has been at the tip of the spear of about every civil rights movement, and we have a lot of stories to tell and share. So don't just try to go it alone. You'll get a lot more people to show up, and you won't be preaching to the choir if you're partnering with your gender groups, your disability groups, your ethnicity groups. So don't forget.
Yeah, that linkage to build on what Gary said, that linkage across a diverse group of representation from the business was key for us. Specifically, we have 2 members, regional human resource representatives on our team, our core team, and neither are veterans, but that linkage back to the human resource organization has been critical for the success of our team in improving specifically the self-identification effort. They can work with the local plants to where folks don't have access to necessarily to a computer to update their profile. They can go out on the floor and help them do that. So that the HR linkage has been key for us in addition to other groups.
I think it's important at the outset to establish some sort of signature event or activity that is associated with the group. It can be a volunteerism, it could be community service, it could be something else. And in our company, we call it Operation Care Package. We build gift packages for all of our deployed employees who are serving overseas in a combat zone. This started out with like me and 5 of my best friends filling goodie bags on Veterans Day, and now it's a big deal in the company. We got dozens and dozens of volunteers. People want to be a part of it. The CEO wants to be a part of it. I mean, and so I think that signature event, making it successful, something that supports the company as a whole, sort of brings and demonstrates value to the ERG, and that activity draws more members in itself. And so it's sort of I think I saw this in the chat box, but I agree that activity breeds membership, especially when it's purposeful, impactful activity. I think breeds increased membership. Thank you.
All right, great stuff there. We are sadly just about out of time for this panel, so I'm going to have to cut off the Q&A a little early, but would like to give the panel a chance to give us some closing thoughts.
I'll go ahead and start off, and I'll be very quick here. So there might be I think there was a participant earlier in this conference by the name of Lieutenant Colonel Keith Wilson. I just want to give him a shout out and thank him because without him, I would not be where I am now with our ERG and our veteran hiring efforts. So he has personally came in and gave me some career advice in the Army, as well as helped coach me to make the right decisions. And I do want to put a shout out there. And I would say find a mentor if you haven't already for anything that you want to go forward with in your company for any efforts for our veterans, military spouses.
I will kick in and just say we shared a lot. I'm conscious of time, but I will say you're not in this alone. The thing that I love about this work is that we can compete on any other field of our business and we collaborate here. So I pick up the phone and call people at Mike at USAA or Dave at CVS I saw in the room. My best industry friends are JP Morgan Chase, who on other levels is a competitor. So don't be afraid to reach out to us on LinkedIn, and don't be afraid to ask a lot of other people what's working for them.
Yeah, along those same lines, from our perspective, the Transition Assistance Partnership, we have a TAP program that speaking of not being in it alone, where we partner up newly hired veterans with current Sonoco veterans to mentor them for a period of time, has been very successful for us. And someone referenced a similar type program earlier, but to me, that's one that we need to improve upon, because where we do it well, it's been very successful from a retention perspective. So it's encouraging to me, and I would share that as another best practice, not one that I can necessarily tell you that we do the best, but one that we want to build upon and make better.
All right.
I guess I'll go. If I have time, real quick, just as Tiffany and Don mentioned, and Chris, the worst thing you could do is try to do it alone. A lot of times as veteran or military spouses, we're resourceful. But the great thing is when you raise your hand and you ask for help, you're no longer alone. And as Tiffany was mentioning, we're all unified. We're stronger together. If there's anything that USA can do, or if I can be of assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to have a meeting and share any best practices that we have, because it's all about having more guns in the fight. So thank you.
And quick last word. I think like any company endeavor, you need the support of your leadership to succeed. I've seen ERGs fail without that support. How do you get that support? Well, you get them involved early, but also you show business value. And to show business value, you need some metrics. I saw that in the chat box earlier on, but you need to develop a way to demonstrate the business value that your ERG is contributing to the company. In terms of retention, in terms of volunteer activities, engagement in the community, referrals in the talent acquisition program, mentors in the mentorship program. These are things you can measure. They build cohesion, they add to retention, and it demonstrates business value for your ERG. So in order to sustain the ERG, you got to have support from the senior executives, the leadership of the company, and they love business value. So I would recommend you find ways to measure those type of activities and then demonstrate how those things are contributing to the overall company. And I think that's really the last point I'm going to make. Thank you very much.
All right, excellent. Well, that will wrap up this panel. Thank you so much to all of the panelists. I thought we had some really great insight there. If you all wouldn't mind, panelists, turn off your cameras and microphones and then close the window you've been speaking in, and I will wrap up this conference. Again, thank you to the speakers in that panel, and thank you to everyone who made this event such an incredible success. I am going to drop a couple of links into the chat before I go. First, this link that I just pasted will take you to our Vets Index's Employer Awards page, where you can register if your organization would like to participate. Again, that program is entirely free and open to all. We would love to have you join us. And second, I just put a link into the chat for one of our conference partners. New York City SHRM, which is a conference sponsor, is hosting an HR conference from 4/20 to 4/22, so in less than a week. In addition, all attendees of this conference can get a $110 discount to attend that conference. Just use promo code VETS249. Again, VETS, VETS 249. And I'll also type that promo code into the chat right now. So there you go. It's been an incredible day. There are many people we have to thank for making this a success. First of all, of course, thank you to our conference sponsors. They are Mass Mutual, USAA, Fiserv Salutes, the Bob Woodruff Foundation, Just Capital, Comcast NBC Universal, Oracle, Amazon, Amerivet Securities, ETF Global, Five9, General Dynamics Bath Iron Works, SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, New York City SHRM, and Summit Companies. Thank you, of course, to all of our panelists and speakers. I thought everyone did an amazing job. Some really great insight here. I think really useful for anyone in the veteran employment space. And of course, thanks to each of you for attending and making this by far our biggest Employing U.S. Vets conference ever. Thank you so much. So just before I leave you, again, 3 additional dates for you to mark on your calendar for our next few events. First, again, May 20th, we're going to have a virtual event recognizing the inaugural recipients of the Vets Index's Employer Awards. That's going to be May 20th. October 14th, that's our next Employing U.S. Vets conference. That conference, like this one, will be virtual. And following that, April 14th, 2022, that is our next in-person Employing U.S. Vets conference. That will be held at the New York Athletic Club in Midtown Manhattan in New York City. Again, thank you all for coming to this conference and participating. We really appreciate it. I hope everyone has a great day, and this concludes the Spring 2021 Employing U.S. Vets Conference. Thanks, everyone. Bye.